Good afternoon. There are shocking new details about the murder of a young Calgary woman last month at the hands of an ex-boyfriend.
Police now say Nadia El-Dib was gunned down as she lay on the ground already gravely wounded. And a warning, the details in this story are graphic.
March is a difficult month for 26-year-old Rasha El-Dib. On March 25th of last year, her younger sister Nadia was brutally murdered in a nearby backyard. Nadia was stabbed 40 times and shot twice by an ex-boyfriend.
It became a case of, if I can't have you, nobody else can. So he took away her life, kidnapped her around 3 in the morning, didn't take her back to her car. Then I found the crime scene the next day and found out that my sister was murdered.
For El-Dib, each day represents a milestone on her journey with grief.
You just expect, anytime somebody knocks on the door, you just have this hopeful feeling that it's them, or that, this is all a dream, or that this was a movie, because really it did feel like a movie. This doesn't happen other than on TV shows and movies, but the reality is that it does, but you just don't see it.
For El-Dib, losing her sister in a domestic violence case inspired her to work alongside other racialized communities.
As communities, we should be teaming up together because, again, it doesn't discriminate. So just as much as it is happening to my women, Lebanese women, it's happening to Indigenous women, and that we should be working together because we're all fighting for the same thing.
Violence prevention has also been extremely important to 26-year-old Alexandra Daigneault. As an Indo-Caribbean Canadian woman herself, she understands the lived experiences of racialized communities.
I think that violence within marginalized communities, especially like racialized communities, is a big issue. And I've seen the women around me really struggle with it. And there's a feeling of voicelessness that comes with it.
El-Dib and Daigneault came together to advocate for women from all cultural backgrounds. Of all things, these women connected through tea.
Two years ago, Daigneault founded Sarjessa, a local tea company whose mission is to support violence prevention programming for women in crisis.
One day I was in my favorite coffee shop and I looked down at their teas and coffees, and I realized I was buying product that was helping small farmers and Indigenous communities elsewhere in the world, but there were really no products that I could support local Indigenous communities and engage in activism that way.
El-Dib was inspired to work with Sarjessa because of her sister's story.
We're just told as women to give men second chances and to be nice, to give them that closure, and because of the fear of them becoming violent. And Nadia was nice, and she still was murdered.
Even before she founded Sarjessa, working with marginalized communities was always important to Daigneault. Indigenous
women experience violence at such a higher rate than other racialized women in Canada. There's no doubt it's a crisis.
Now, Sarjessa works to raise awareness about missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls with information about the cause printed on every box of tea.
None of these women deserve to go missing. None of them deserve to die. And so how can we best honor their memory and their lives?
In her work with Indigenous communities on Treaty 7 territory, Daigneault donates $2 from each box of tea sold to Awotan Healing Lodge Society, an Indigenous-led women's shelter that is grounded in an Indigenous framework.
I'm not there to lead the programming or guide it. My donation is undesignated, which means that they can use it within any part of their program. And that's so intentional. By just giving them the shelter money and saying, here is my contribution, I trust you to know where the problem is, and this is my way of trying to help. I think that that's the best positionality for me as a settler and as a supporter.
We use sage for our smudging.
Jackie Bromley, the cultural lead elder at Awotan Healing Lodge Society, says the families that come through the shelter typically have nothing but the clothing on their back. Daigneault's donations typically go to providing clothing, hygiene products, and even milk for the babies. For Bromley, Daigneault's contributions mean a great deal.
She could have gone to other organizations to donate, to help out. I couldn't believe it, the help that she's doing for The shelter. That's what inspired me, is for her to come to Awotan.
For LDIB, witnessing Danielle's work with Indigenous women in the area of violence prevention gives her hope.
Not only is she helping the Indigenous communities when it comes to bringing awareness on the missing and murdered Indigenous women, but she's also providing those funds from her tea sales to local shelters here in Calgary. And it's also locally made, which is amazing.
As a settler herself, Danielle is continually inspired by the resilience Indigenous people share.
I'm just always so grateful to be surrounded by such strong women who know so much and have such powerful voices. I learned so much. People don't need to share knowledge with me. People don't need to be doing the things that they are doing to support me. I feel really lucky to be able to give back in some way to Indigenous communities, because I really see the teachings that I've been given as gifts that have helped me as a person, but also in general.
Danielle hopes to continue to support violence prevention programming through her activism. Her proceeds will continue to go towards Awotan Healing Lodge Society for the foreseeable future. For the Calgary Journal, I'm Sarah Green.
And I'm Karina Zapata.